All right, and now it's online. So I'm sorry I'm a little late today. I had a busy weekend, which we can talk about later on a not recorded channel. So today is the for better or worse, it is the theoretical end of milestone 1. And as you both know, we're not there yet.
Not exactly.
Not exactly. So let me share my screen. Google Hangouts would let me share my screen. That would be great. It doesn't look like it wants to let me do it.
I can take over, I think, if needed. Just tell me.
Yeah, why don't you share your screen?
Just opening. Do you want to open, I suppose, the
Jira
board?
And the GitHub repo. That's what I had open.
Okay, so
I can share the whole screen, just not the window.
So normally you should see my screen now.
Yeah, you can see that.
So, and I had also opened that.
Cool. So will you go to the Evergreen repository?
Yeah. And on a PR or something?
No, just down in the README, I had an outline of what milestone 1 was. And if you could enhance.
Okay, now I get what you wanted to show.
Yeah. We zoom in a bit. Perfect. It's huge. All right. So I sent or I wrote a blog post last Friday in my time, and I don't know if Baptiste or Raul, you had seen it. I'm actually given how much work we've been doing and how we had anticipated having one more person working on this, a person yet to be hired at Cloudbees. I'm actually quite pleased with the progress that we've made, because we've got sort of the basics packaged. We don't have them all connected and working correctly. We've got the design of the error telemetry on the client side, and based on your comments in Gitter, Baptiste, the server side stuff is what you're working on now.
So yeah, I guess I'll give status just after, or do you want me to talk a bit more in length?
That's fine. We'll get into status in a little bit. But really, the pre-baking of configuration that's there in some basic level, and then the updates and the version stuff that's working in progress. And I think it's moving along well. We've got I think a decent design out there. I think the client is completely ready for those updates to start being applied from the snapshotting system. But I think we're very close. That's what I'm getting at. I think it's tying up some loose ends.
I guess we have the 80% of work done, which means
it's that last 20% that's going to take us.
Exactly. Wiring things together. How hard can it be?
Yeah. So I guess if you want to bounce over to the Jira board, we might as well go through some of the stuff that's been going on. Do you want to start out, Raul?
Maybe I'm going to show the closed ones.
Raul?
Yeah. So for my part, I've been working on the developer workflow. I'm Jenkins 50540 and Jenkins 5061. The pull request is already there, just waiting for merge. But I can put that on review. There is one pull request that adds the run ATH, another one that runs the PCT. Just these runs don't use yet custom web packager and JEP 305. There are another ticket for that when I can do that.
This is all happening within the Git plugin repository right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Is
let
it,
me share.
sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to share this request.
I guess one of the questions that I wanted to ask while you pull something up, is this tooling far enough along so where Batiste could pull it into another plugin, like the build trigger badge plugin, for example? Or is it not ready for that yet?
Well, it's ready to get in any plugin, but it's not yet the complete workflow we want. I mean, this
Okay.
this is not getting the full latest released version of Essentials and using the custom WAR packager to generate a custom WAR file with all the latest versions in a deterministic way to run the APH and the PCT. So there is a previous step to what is already there, which is being able to build a custom WAR with all the decided versions in a deterministic way. Because now it's running the APH using the update center.
Yeah, right. So on the custom work packager side, we have tasks to integrate with JEP 305. I mean, deployment of incrementals. I hope to handle it within the next 2 weeks so that we will have tooling for both deployment and for using these releases in custom work packager. But yeah, the main thing is we depend on that all plugins used in Essentials need to be updated to the latest parent POM, so the changes created by JSON get applied. Without that, it doesn't really make sense to even try custom work packager now, because it just doesn't pick the versions you would use.
Is that a requirement for all of the top level dependencies or all of the transitive dependencies and plugins as well?
All transitive dependencies as well.
I'm gonna make a note of that.
So yeah, if you want to ship all latest, you need to modify parent POM for everything. So I guess suggest you did a new release of plugin POM on Friday, and it needs to be in every plugin.
Well, there are other changes. It's not just the parent POM, but well, I mean, it depends on what you're actually trying to accomplish. So if you switch metadata to incrementals format, that means you're able to publish binaries from individual commits, but whether those are actually used by a particular test suite depends on how that test suite is configured. So I didn't see anything in the Git plugin PR, for example, that would directly use that.
Let me ask this question a slightly different way. If I wanted to take the latest for what is arguably called Jenkins pipeline, that suite of plugins, right? What work do we need to do to get to where we could consume that latest?
Well, if you just need the latest from the master branch, or from whatever other branch, you can do it now. In custom work packager, you just define this latest branch as a source. The problem is that these latest versions won't be tracked and won't be published to incremental releases, so that you won't have a traceability of what you actually test.
Well, like that's the custom work packager stuff is not what I'm getting at. It's really that, like, for me, the latest has to be in the incrementals repository in order for us to ship it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get a sense of what's the outstanding work, or like what are the tickets to where pipeline, for example, we could say is fully published in the incrementals repository for consumption and testing, of course.
Well, in that case, I mean, all of those plugin repositories would need to be switched to the new metadata format. There's also a problem that currently we're only able to publish binaries from pull requests, not from trunk.
Right.
Which is not critical, I think, since you'd have to at least prepare that work in a pull request to even see if it isn't broken. but then we would need to. So if you wanted it, for example, if you wanted the YAML file in the Evergreen repository to pin particular versions of those plugins, then you could do so as soon as all of those plugins had their metadata appropriately edited.
But when you refer to the metadata, are you referring to the repo permissions? Or
that's
metadata?
part of it, but then in the plugin repository itself, it needs a new parent POM, and then it needs a few edits to the POM and some associated files. So there's a little developer's guide created as part of the incrementals work that gives the steps you have to take to switch it over.
Okay.
But we don't currently have a tool for, I guess, looking up the expected version number.
What do you mean the expected version number?
So if you wanted a tool to say patch the YAML file in the Evergreen repository to be the currently latest commit and master for all of those plugins, we don't yet have a tool to look that up and compute.
Oh, are you referring to the email I sent on Friday to the dev list?
No, I haven't read that yet.
Oh, well, it sounds like we might be on a similar wavelength then.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll read that, and that might be a task you'd have to put into the incrementals epic.
Okay.
Yeah, but once we have an update center for incrementals, then we can pull it using the existing tooling.
I have no plans on pointing the update center generation towards that incrementals repository.
Okay, noted.
And just for your background, Oleg, part of the reason that I'm fairly strongly against that is we had significant, I would say, load challenges that were difficult to diagnose in Artifactory because of how heavily the churn was in the releases repository, and Artifactory's indexing was taking quite a long time. We uncovered issues in Artifactory that fortunately JFrog had fixed, but it took us probably 4 weeks to get that done because it's sort of a black box if something goes wrong.
Yeah, I remember this story in Info. So we don't want to repeat it in incrementals.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean for incrementals, I don't see any reason to use the Artifactory index anyway. I mean, part of the point is to get away from using the Artifactory index.
Right. Well, so Jesse, maybe after this, just to keep us moving along, we can follow. I just want to make sure I've got the appropriate scope of if I were to start the test automation work is going on the Git plugin, and that's moving along well. If I wanted to start taking incrementals and of Blue Ocean and Pipeline, for example, those I think are going to have the biggest impact for the teams working on those. If we can start to consume those more rapidly. Just what's the delta in work to where we could reasonably pull those in? That's all I want to get scoped out, so I have an idea of what I can maybe beg Andrew to work on.
Yeah, maybe I should sync up with Andrew about that. I mean, there's also a conversation we'll have with the pipeline team about what Jenkins baselines are appropriate, but that's sort of orthogonal, I think, here, because you can do incrementals even when you're not picking up an incremental version of core, even when you're using an old LTS.
But what I'm thinking is if Raul and Oleg have there's some connections to be made between what Raul's working on and the custom war packager stuff that Oleg's been working on. Well, that's going on. Maybe you, Andrew, and I can bridge the gap for pipeline to sort of get pipeline ready to be consumed and tested. And that I think that'll reduce some of the wall clock time for getting this work done.
What I would like to see very roughly is some simple tool you could you could run where you have if you have a checkout of Evergreen, that you could just say, run this tool, and it would inspect all of the repositories that go into it and propose updates for all of the plugins that are listed there.
Mm-hmm.
Updates, you mean GitHub, like parent pom, etc.?
No, that it would say, okay, Evergreen is currently bundling, such and such commit, but I see the master branch now has such and such commit. Apply this diff to the YAML file.
You should read the email I sent on Friday, and then we can talk about that, because we're 100% on the same wavelength.
That never happens.
Is it an infrastructure on the developer mailing list?
It's on the developer mailing list. It was just a follow-up to the bill of materials thread that Carlos had started.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I just failed to read it for sure.
I sent it Friday afternoon, my time, so.
Oh, was it just a response to the thread from Carlos?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that one I read.
Okay. So we got Raul. Baptiste, you want to go? Tell us what's up.
Yeah. So basically, last week there was many PR, many JEPs ongoing, and many things going on Evergreen. But on my side, I mainly worked on the client side. I think it was merged early last week, the JEP for the client side of pushing the error logging. And since then, but I've been out a bit, I've been working on the server side. Barring other issues on my side, learning Node.js, I'm most I would say done-ish, because now I think by ish I mean that it kind of works now, but now I need to make it work for real with checks and so on. I think because right now I can push whatever I want, so I think overall and over time I think we should begin to be more picky about what is acceptable on the server side. Thing pushes. Oh, by the way, I didn't start writing any kind of JEP for the server side. I guess we should do that. Or do you think for the server side it's maybe more an IEP?
No. Definitely write a JEP. The IEP stuff is for stuff that you would be writing in like Puppet or Terraform or services.
In any case, it's not in the wrong order in any case, because I still need to prototype and so on to have some matter for filing any kind of JEP. So anyway, it's the right direction. And I'll need probably some think with you, Tyler, indeed, on the how do we make it testable and hackable on locally on a developer machine?
Client and the server side?
Yeah, exactly. And kind of related to what you said in your introduction today, we need to start wiring things together so that it actually uses things locally, even when developing an Evergreen, which now is mostly mocked. So, that's it.
With the server side of that error telemetry API, have you given much thought to how developers should consume these errors, or where we should be sending them next after we receive them?
Not enough. I think a bit. I was thinking, for instance, should we have different endpoints or only one for error logging, and use a different, let's say, type field to push, I don't know, things from Jenkins, things like the Evergreen client, things like, I don't know, the system log, where there's not really system logs in a Docker container, but anything new. For instance, if we introduce in the future any kind of reverse proxy, for instance, we could push logs from it, error logs from there, or many endpoints, as I said. So I'm not sure yet, and then we would probably process those in a different way, because they wouldn't be pushing the exact same JSON or something. But not enough yet to dig on.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is early on, when I was prototyping some of Evergreen out, I was planning on just shooting errors straight from the client to Sentry, Sentry.io. And one of the things that I've been debating whether we should do is we still want to own that endpoint. Like we want error logs to come into the backend services. But for ease of use, it might make sense for us to then relay those to a error service like Sentry.
Yeah. So for your information, you've written that in some of the tickets saying we should own the endpoint indeed, and possibly later or now, I don't know yet, send things outside. For instance, what I think we discussed some time ago, maybe also the GC logging, for instance, we could push that to some external service where some experts, for instance, and they would analyze and maybe be able to trigger some analysis and so on. So yeah, that's maybe interesting to discuss.
Will you do me a favor and will you maybe set up some time to talk with Olivier about some of the error logging work that he had done originally? When he started working on Jenkins infrastructure, we had looked at some log aggregation for infrastructure services and just talked to him about what we have right now in our Kubernetes infrastructure for handling logs from services. We might have something we can take advantage of there.
Right. Noted.
Okay, and then I guess I'm last, I think. Yeah. So the stuff that most of the stuff that I was working on last week, as I hope y'all saw, was some of the update level processes and how we're going to incorporate updates to the actual instances. Some of that stuff I have wired on the server side. So the update levels, the data is all being shuffled around correctly. What I started to get into last Friday, which is what prompted the email to the bill of materials thread, was how I'm going to actually, like, there's two integration points. There's Essentials YAML has to turn into updates in the database, and then the client has to consume those in some reasonable way. And so while I wait to figure out some of the versioning or some of the tooling stuff, as we were alluding to earlier, Jesse, I'm just going to wrap up the client side of storing the update level and making sure that we have the right information there. But I think, honestly, assuming that the tooling isn't going to be overly complex and doesn't take more than a day to get something basic working, I think at least on somebody's laptop, we can be shipping updates this week. Because I think all the pieces are there. Famous last words, says Oli. This week will be the week for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, regarding tooling, I'll follow up in the thread because I think we can get benefit from some stories and maybe work around the need to update each plugin. So I will follow up with JC to understand the incremental release more. We have a story for deployment to incremental releases from custom work packager. And actually, if it works, we may close the gap, at least for the hub, for the story. Without updating plugins, but no warranty that it can really work. I need to understand it after talking with JC.
Right. So I don't think that there's anything that I'm working on that I'm blocked on except for the discussion around the tooling with Jesse. Baptiste, is there anything that I'm blocking you on?
Not really, but I think you know much more than me on the Node.js and Feather.js side. So yeah, if you can possibly either show me how you do it already, or how to wire things, locally to be able to test things and maybe write, as I said on the chat, kind of end users, or kind of acceptance testing, I would say, from triggering the actual instance in Jenkins in the container like we do now, and check that for instance, the error logging service does receive the warnings and so on, for instance.
Will you add a ticket into this milestone about the integration testing and just incorporating some basic level of integration testing?
Yep. Noted.
Yeah, and in the next hour or two, I have to go to an appointment. So we could jump on a hangout later today or early tomorrow morning, my time. To
Later
walk through some
today
of this.
works for me.
Okay. Raul, are there any things that we're blocking you on or can help with?
Yeah, two things. One is it seems there are no Windows nodes on ci.jenkins.io. I mean, my pull request to it is getting blocked by that.
I can't really understand what you're saying.
I say that it seems there are no more Windows agents on ci.jenkins.io.
Or is it not provisioning them again?
I don't know what is happening. I only know that your request to Git plugin is stale since yesterday and is trying to find a Windows node and is telling me there is no Windows node.
Ah, yeah. This looks like a familiar problem in our infrastructure. So
Okay.
I'll take a look at this after the meeting. Other than that,
Apart from that, just a general comment. If we are going to break the flow to more plugins, it would be great a way to test the Jenkins files on the pull request, because at this moment I'm just copying the pull request to my own plugin where I am a trusted source, so maintainer can see it working, but this doesn't scale. So it's not blocking, it's not very important at this moment, but maybe it's something to think about.
Yeah.
so tomorrow, Raul, if you ping Baptiste, he's the maintain. The reason that I mentioned the build trigger badge is he's the maintainer of it, and it's a very small and simple plugin. To where if you wanted to test some of the PCT or ATH work that you're doing with that, it might be a much smaller surface area than the Git plugin. If you wanted to compare and contrast.
No, I have my own plugin for
Okay.
that.
Oh right, yeah, you got the status notify plugin.
Yeah, that's true. So, but maybe it's a bit strange for some maintainers to see. You know, they would like to see, but that is not blocking anyone.
Okay.
So that's something for the future.
Yeah. I have created some demo pipeline unit things for Jenkins infra pipeline library when I was working on my conference talks in December. But I have not even created pull requests for that. So maybe at some point.
Yeah, makes sense. Can you send me the link to that, Ole?
Yeah, I can try to find it. It's somewhere in my branches.
Okay, don't worry.
On that note, I'll be granting the two of you access to merge to the pipeline library. I'm fine with sharing maintenance of that. And then you two should be able to do some topic branches for more testing on CI Jenkins IO.
Okay, perfect. And now we know who will be fixing all this stuff. It's also nice.
Now I'm going to be able to break another master.
Right. All right. With that, I don't know if there's anything else that we need to discuss for today.
Just for the record, tomorrow I am on holidays.
Okay.
Yes, for you, and actually today also.
I didn't want to pollute the thread, but it's the same in France tomorrow.
Really, another holiday? France is killing me.
Public holiday.
It's also Spain, it's not only France.
Yeah, so you're the only ones who work tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm working half days today and tomorrow, by the way.
It's Europeans, man. It's Europeans are never at work.
Europeans plus East Coasters, let's say.
It's tomorrow is Labor Day. We don't work. Go figure.
right, guys. Well, I guess I'll be very lonely tomorrow, and I'll look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday.
See you later today. For me, we can think about what we said.
Okay, sounds good. I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.